Hello. Today's book is JFK and the Unspeakable by James W. Douglas. Why he died and why it matters. I think it matters why he died, and I think this book sets up a case that is quite convincing that, in fact, the CIA is responsible for the death of JFK. He starts out by giving his evidence of how the CIA was disturbed by Kennedy's actions, how he wasn't going along with the Cold War machines that was so much in vogue and in power during that time. This is in the very early 60s. And since the end of World War II, the United States was dominant in the world with nuclear weapons and so forth, and it started to lose that dominance when the Soviet Union started making nuclear weapons as well. And there is a lot of discussion in the book about how the powers that be, the CIA and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the military, wanted to do a first strike on the Soviet Union and therefore solve that problem of these godless communist enemies. So that was the setup when Kennedy came into office, and he ran as part of the Cold War machine, and then changed, according to this book, and changed quite drastically. And one of the reasons that he changed was because of what went on during the Cuban Missile Crisis, which was quite early in his administration, 1962, I believe. And it involved the Soviet Union moving some missiles into Cuba, nuclear armed missiles, and the United States freaking out, and ultimately Kennedy and Khrushchev made a deal where Kennedy would remove some missiles from Turkey, which were aimed right at the Soviet Union, quite nearby. And the Soviet Union, Khrushchev, would also remove the missiles from Cuba. And there was also agreement that the United States would not invade Cuba in order to depose Castro, which was the reason why the missiles were there in the first place, to protect the new regime that was threatened by the capitalist monster up north, the United States. So this is what really is laid out in the book, and how Kennedy wanted to fired Allen Dulles and wanted to scatter the CIA to the wind, as it stated. And this was upsetting to these people who had been in power for a long time. John Foster Dulles was Secretary of State during the Eisenhower administration, and his brother, Allen Dulles, was the head of the CIA. And during that period, they were given basically free reign and secret budgets to do all these kind of set up. Basically, they set up in 1948. They set up a terrorist organization that was allowed to do whatever it wanted to protect the security of the United States. And it ultimately got twisted to, by the time that Kennedy was in office, to that they needed to continue to protect the United States, and that would involve assassinating this president who was on these peace campaigns and who was being soft on communism. Appeasement is what they called it. So that is the reason given for the plotting for the assassination of President Kennedy. He gives a lot of documentation of how Lee Harvey Oswald was completely involved with the CIA, how he'd been trained by the CIA from the very beginning, and how he, when he defected to the Soviet Union, it was basically a fake idea that he was going to be a spy for the USA, and Soviet Union was quite on to him right away, and ultimately he wanted to come back, and the USA gave him money to come back and welcomed him back. All these things that would put question into the minds of anybody else about this defector into the horrible, godless Soviet Union, who is now coming back and is welcomed without being, interviewed extensively and everything else. Oh, it's it's quite an elaborate story of things that have been put together over the years, because all this happened 60 years ago was when Kennedy was assassinated in in November 22nd, 1963, and then a couple of days later, Jack Ruby, who was set up to kill Lee Harvey Oswald and get rid of him so he wouldn't talk and end up, giving away this big conspiracy of what went on. Jack Ruby shot the president. A couple of days later, it was a Sunday. I remember I was at my grandmother's house and saw it on TV. I don't know if I saw the actual thing or the replay. They were moving Ruby from one place to another in the police station down the basement. Lee Harvey Oswald from one place to another, and that's where Ruby approached in this crowd of people that were there, and with a pistol, and shot him a couple times. And this was all on television, so everything, all these things were shot on television. There's a movie, there's a Zapruder film of the actual assassination of Kennedy, which was suppressed for many years. We were not allowed to see that until the 70s, when a print of it got escaped from a lab that was given the job of bumping it up to 35 millimeter from the 8 millimeter, which it was originally. So yeah, a lot of stuff about the plot and how it was all put together, how it was the Warren Commission, how the Warren, they put Allen Dulles on the Warren Commission. The whole setup was to make it look like Cuba and the Soviet Union were responsible for Kennedy's death, that would then empower the United States to go to war with these communist enemies. Fortunately, Johnson sort of put the kibosh on that and said, no, we just need one lone gunman, and that's basically what the Warren Commission ended up doing, focusing on the one lone gunman and putting aside all the conspiracy stuff, which was just a little bit too much. And, Johnson wasn't really prepared to go to war with the Soviet Union over this, which would have ended up, killing millions and millions of people, because these nuclear weapons are powerful, and that's why Kennedy wanted to turn away from them. And so, yeah, there's a lot of this evidence about how Kennedy was turning away from nuclear weapons, having secret dialogues with Khrushchev, like having emissaries that run dialogues with Khrushchev and Castro, secret, away from the eyes of the government that he was supposedly running, and his own national security system that he was supposed to. But he had to do these things in secret, because all along the way they were trying to do things to block him or force him into confrontations and force him into war with the, setting up various plans to that he would have to respond and go to war. So it's all just so horrifying and creepy and sad, because of what it talks about, what could have been. And one of the things what could have been was that it claims that he really wanted to pull out of Vietnam, and made a document saying, yes, we're going to pull out of Vietnam, and I'm going to pull out of Vietnam when I'm reelected, because he was concerned that it would not be popular for the election in 1964. And he said, I'm going to pull out of Vietnam. Well, he got assassinated instead, and 50,000 Americans end up being killed in Vietnam, maybe 1 million Vietnamese, and we ended up with the same result anyway, without all that death and expenditure to the military complex, with all these bombs and weapons and all this crap that they made to make this happen. And since then, it's just been one after another, with the CIA and the military basically running our country. And look at this century, when they after 9/11, when they go on this bizarre mission of invading and occupying, all these other countries. Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, and just trashing these cultures, spending a lot of money while the United States is kind of falling apart. It is basically all the result of what happened in 1963, and what that solidified. It solidified the right wing of the United States and its military wishes and intentions, and it made that basically the motive of the country and what the country is all about. They talk about freedom and bringing freedom, but what they do is bring coups and despotic leaders into one country and after another, and it's just what could have been a better deal had we gone along with what Kennedy was wanting to do. We didn't get. We got this horror instead of this incredibly rich military contractors and so forth, who basically run the country and keep driving us to war. James Douglas is an interesting figure here. It says, as a peace activist and writer, whose works include The Nonviolent Coming of God and Resistance and Contemplation. And with his wife Shirley, he's the co-founder of the Mary House, a Catholic worker house of hospitality in Birmingham, Alabama. So he's a Catholic worker type, and that is quite apparent in the text. He talks a lot about Thomas Merton, and how Thomas Merton was also a peace advocate too, and how Thomas Merton came up with the term the unspeakable, which is well, it's explained in the text. But anyway, JFK and the Unspeakable. Why did I read this particular book about the assassination? I haven't read any other books about the assassination all this time. You know, there's been, I don't know, there must be hundreds of them by now. I had read a couple other things. I read Mary Fairy and the Monkey Virus, which is a quite interesting story in itself, kind of an offshot of everything else. But no, I've been a believer in basically the CIA did it theory for decades, you know, so this is not new, and it's all kind of falling apart now. I mean, still the government has not released, the CIA has not released like 5,000 files. And Joe Biden was supposed to release them. Trump was supposed to release them, looked at them and said, no, I can't release them. Biden decided not to release them and basically tossed it back to the CIA to decide whether they're going to release these remaining files or not, after it was set up in Congress that they were supposed to by this given time, and they have not done so. Things drip out. We have a lot of information that is dripped out. There's the JFK facts Substack, and a lot of stuff is coming out of that. There's a new podcast by Rob Reiner and Soledad O'Brien called Who Killed JFK, which is playing right now. It started last month. It's going to be a 10-parter, and you know, basically, it's along with this theory of inside job, and the government did it to stop the peace candidate and solidify the power of the war machine. So, and then, you know, Robert Kennedy is shot a few years later. So it's, you know, it's so I read this book because RFK Jr. Suggested that it was a good one to read about his uncles and partly about his father's death, and he believes, Robert Kennedy Jr. believes that it's a CIA thing. So if he is elected president, which he's not going to be, then you know, maybe something would happen. But nothing is going to happen because this power of the military, like the military, I saw a figure a couple days ago where the military, for lobbying to Congress, the military-industrial complex spends like $180, $130 million a year in lobbying Congress. So you know, they have bought everything off. They control everything. The CIA is all over the media. We know that. They have been for years, and it's a monstrous situation of a nation that you know, started as this boomer land where the white folk came in and killed everybody, and you know, it's just this horrible. The United States is a nightmare on the world right now, and what it's doing, and what it's going to continue to do, and it's just sad, and I feel bad about it, and you know, it's not going to change in my lifetime, and probably not yours either, because everything is just getting more solid and more clamped down, and with censorship, and now you know, all this talk of censorship from the government now, censoring the internet, so we don't have any sort of outside voices. Well, you know, they're going to do all that, and JFK and the Unspeakable. It's a good book, and I recommend it. A lot of this is notes and index, so forth at the end, so it's not quite as big as it looks. It's about 380 pages is how long the book really is, and it's a good read. It clips along quite nicely. It's all very, very interesting, believe me, with the tangled webs of connections, and I'm gonna read. I'm reading a more fun book now, a fun little crime novel, so by Evan Hunter. So that'll be a change of pace from this. Thank you for watching.